quite like anywhere in the world. If you're rich, you're fine. But if you're going to be reliant on public care in your old age for long-term care, I won't swear, you've got a problem. Right? You've got a problem. If you're an economist, you would say we have a wonderful pension system in Hong Kong because it's not going bankrupt like European pension systems are. If you're a social policy person, you say we have a terrible pension system in Hong Kong because we don't have a pension system in Hong Kong. We've got this lousy MPF. Sorry, we have this MPF. I should be more polite about it, but we have this MPF. But I think you could all agree within this room, social policy, that our income protection measures are pretty poor. We have a high degree of income poverty. Whether or not that's offset, you can offset income. I don't say poverty because you can offset it against housing and so on, but our income poverty rate among elderly is still very high. In terms of, so I'd say MPF, old age allowance, fruit money, comprehensive social security allowance, although they exist, this is clearly not going to be enough either for income protection or for these long-term care needs. So, and we do have policy innovation in these areas too. And these are coming, again, in a push and pull way. Since 2013, we've had the so-called Guangdong scheme, and more recently, the Fujian scheme. This is where you're effectively your your fruit money, your old age allowance, or your CSSA can be portable. So you can take your allowance and you can go and live in Guangdong province, or live in Fujian province, and enjoy your allowance over there. And that's relative to age, so in theory, of course, for some it will be from 60, well, it will be more universal from age 70. And there are other cross-border, so this is the most obvious one, but there are also other kind of cross-border policy innovations we would see in this area as well. For example, supported by the Jockey Club. These are kind of pilot residential care services. Okay, so this is understanding that long-term care is very expensive in Hong Kong and is very difficult to get on the waiting, to get to the top of the waiting list. So if you're on the waiting list, there is a possibility that you can switch and get a kind of a fast track to get into these care homes in Guangdong province, in Shijiazhuangji. And they look very pleasant, and they are very. I'm not going to say anything sarcastic now. They do. They look very pleasant. They look good. Their services are exactly as you would expect. And there's also things like you can go back to Hong Kong for medical follow-up, right? So it's not like you're closing the door, right? There is this innovation, and it's genuinely a good, and that's what I want to say about these policies. They are good policies, right? I think they are good policies. So we can see that example there. And again, all the time, I wrote this talk, because I'm neurotic, I write things 6 weeks in advance, so I wrote this in August. And we can almost on the day that I wrote this, there was some kind of new policy, new innovation. In this case here, effectively giving Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan elder residents the same kind of treatment in Shenzhen as local residents. And this is for things like bus use and access to sports venues and things like that, medical treatment. Right? Medical treatment. So all of these new policies are being implemented. But then that's not just, we are not only interested in kind of basic income protection or access to long-term care. Of course, if we're looking around the world, an emerging theme now is this idea of retirement migration, or sometimes we potentially think of this as the second demographic dividend. We have a large older population, but a lot of that population is cash and time rich. And there are plenty of ways which the private sector is trying to find of relieving said older population of their time and their money. And this is one example. As you can see, this is the bridge from Macau over there. This is in Zhuhai, Serencia Woods. We are not developing, building and selling property or pure nursing homes providing beds or space homes for the elderly. We are selling services for wellness and retirement, so you can have your wellness in this beautiful block of flats by the river under the grey sky in Zhuhai. And this will cost you about 6 million for a unit there, kind of large unit in Zhuhai. And of course, the cost of this compared to what you're paying on Hong Kong, this is much cheaper and it'll be much bigger. And this is even in Zhuhai. If we go to Huizhou, it'll be in cheaper, right? Okay, so this is in Zhuhai. So we have all of these issues, these challenges, these opportunities, and these policy innovations. And of course, we then also have this meta system or this meta development of integration and infrastructure development. It's easier for us to be able to make the most of these opportunities. The area has never been so joined together. It's never been so close together. I mean, I sometimes, with all this excitement about bridges and super fast trains, of course, this is really the way that most people interact with Greater Bay, right? They get the NTR. And so we shouldn't forget that we don't just have this high-tech, amazing world. Most people walk over the bridge at Lowell in order to, and so this is not new, right? This has been going on for a long time. People cross the border, people have been crossing the border for a long time. So then now I go to my so this is where, wow, it could all be amazing. It's going to solve all of our issues, all of our problems. But there are still a few kind of glitches in this situation. In terms of housing, yes, of course, it's cheaper to buy a house in Guangdong province than it is to buy a house here. And this could be like this a wonderful pathway to set, to family formation as a demographer. But of course, different municipalities have different regulations regarding house purchase. Whether or not there are certain kind of legacy price control restrictions, whether or not this is about the amount of money you have to put down, whether or not this is about how quickly you can turn this around, how quickly you can sell this. In Hong Kong, of course, we have regulations that try to prevent speculation on property. Exactly the same thing in certain municipalities in Guangdong province. Difficult. The reason why I can't buy a house in Hong Kong yet, because I haven't been here for 7 years, so I've got to pay massive stamp duty. It's a similar thing in some municipalities in Guangdong province. There'll be regulations and rules about buying a house. In terms of code restrictions and social security payments, social security insurance and things like that, it makes it difficult to live this transnational existence. Right? You really do have to put down roots in one place or another. And one might say that our system in Hong Kong is expensive, for sure, but, and I hope this would be characterised as a normative statement, but our system, I think you might suggest, is slightly more transparent than buying a house. You're nodding, so thank goodness. I was worried I was going to upset everybody here, right? So our system is a little more transparent, and the legal risk and the legal procedures are slightly different, let's just say, than in favour. So you might say that if we are going to move towards this system of genuine kind of transnational activity and cross-border movement, then we really have to think about these housing policies as clarity. But there are people in this room who know everything about housing policies, and I think I leave it to them to solve this thorny question. It's all very well for us to say, oh well, all of our local students can go and get jobs in the mainland. But then, of course, that forgets that there's also about 1 billion people in the mainland looking for good jobs as well. We would say that there's about 8 million graduates coming out every year, and that is going up Because even though the number of young people is going down, the number of people going to university is outpacing the number of young people, right? So the crunch there is in the graduate job market. And they too are looking for good opportunities. And they are not, I mean, we're talking about being worried moving from, moving from Tunmun to Shenzhen. These graduates are looking forward to the opportunity of moving from Liaoning to, or Jilin to Shenzhen to take these opportunities on. And of course we can't ignore, we can't rest on our laurels in Hong Kong. Yeah, we've got good universities, but mainland universities are catching up. I think there is a divergence. There's a lot of great universities getting better in the mainland, but there's also a lot of bad universities in the mainland. But what we would see from many other places is that those bad universities will probably close down in the next 20 years or so, because the demand inevitably will dry up. Right? So then there will be this concentration on certain universities. And we're already starting to see policy innovation in higher education in China. We see this goal towards creating world-class universities. What do we do about international passport holders? This is only a small factor in this, but of course, if you are neither a Hong Kong passport holder nor a mainland passport holder, like myself, it's very difficult for you to navigate this cross-border world because the system is simply not designed for international passport holders. And then I'm not going to say anything more about this because I think this is what I think Professor Monk talked about in his next talk, which is about the willingness to move. Right? It's all very well for us to look at this on a spreadsheet and say, well, this makes sense, this is the most rational thing for you to do. But if you don't want to go, if you don't like living, if you don't like the idea of living in Guangdong province, if you feel that your Putonghua is not good enough, and you don't want to speak Putonghua, then you've got a problem. Right? There's practical issues around this. That's why we can't just do everything on a spreadsheet and assume that this is the best way forward. And also, just to make one observation as well about this practical, we talk about infrastructure and how amazing everything is now and how it's so easy for us to move around. We live in one place and work in the other. Well, my university is building this brand new campus. It's so beautiful. In Nansha up here. It will be bigger than our campus now. At the moment it's a derelict shrimp farm. It's not the most beautiful place in the world. But everybody's so excited because it's only 40 minutes on the train. So you can live in Clearwater Bay, where I do, and then you can travel to Guangzhou campus, and give your lecture there in the morning. And so, when I'm complaining about coming to Lingnan at 9 o'clock in the morning in Clearwater Bay, it's like, no, it would be easier than getting to Lingnan. It's half the time of getting to Lingnan, right? You can go to Guangzhou. The only problem, of course, is that it takes me an hour and a half to get to West Kowloon from where I live. Then I've got to do battle with immigration, which these days takes a lot longer than it used to. Then I take my high-speed train for 40 minutes, and then I've got to walk half an hour at the end of it. So my 40-minute train journey of this amazing infrastructure going 300 kilometers an hour, whoosh, going so fast through Shenzhen, it's actually going to take me all morning to get there. So it's just not practical, right? We have this infrastructure, but unless you're lucky enough to live on top of West Kowloon Station and you work on top of the station in Guangzhou, you can't do it. It's just not practical. So then you would have to have two houses in two different places, which is going to cost you twice as much money and is therefore twice as inefficient. And actually, you inflate the housing market, right? So this is just not really. There's a practical issues about this. And then when we think about aging, the last kind of challenge I would suggest about aging is this. I mean, this is a nice little quote I saw just from the newspaper. They were interviewing Mr. Wong, who was born in Hong Kong and who took his fruit money, took his CSSA, and is now living in Dongguan, in a nursing home in Dongguan. He says, compared with Hong Kong, the living cost in Dongguan is lower. That makes sense. But you can only say so if you don't see doctors. When you get ill and you go to the hospital, a large amount of medical fees will immediately raise your expense to a high level. So there's a problem, right? If everything's fine, unless something goes wrong. And of course, the system that we have here is just different. There are these challenges, these practical issues there. And of course, when we see the number of recipients who are taking advantage of this cross-border scheme and taking advantage of one-stop scheme, it's going down. Right? It's not going up, it's going down. And we know there are also kind of rising costs as well, which is associated with this. That our Hong Kong dollar is not going as far as it used to do in the past, but also challenges of fitting in. You know, the process of hopping sticks, moving over there, of having your entire life now recreated in a different place apart from where you've lived for 50 years is quite difficult. And then also we could say that these connections are changing as well. The number of people aged over 65 who were born in Hong Kong is increasing. One of the justifications for the Guangdong scheme or Fujian scheme is that it's going back home, right? It's being born in Guangdong, being born in Fujian, live in Hong Kong for your entire life, and then you go back. But that we are now on a kind of relentless change towards more and more older people having been born, brought up, everything in Hong Kong. So the reason for them, the rationale for them to cross the border is therefore much weaker. So to kind of tie all of this together, then, in my last 2 minutes, is this right? Yeah. I would say that all of these policies, you know, they're good policies. Right? There's lots of good things which are occurring at the moment, and they all make sense. They're all rational, right? But it's not going to fix everything. It's not a silver bullet which is going to solve our problems if we look at this through a demographic lens. Because we do still have one country, two systems. And there are two systems, right? And we can't pretend that they don't exist. We can't pretend that there isn't a border. We can't pretend that buying a house in one place is different to buying a house in another place. Right? We can't pretend that getting sick in one place has different consequences from being sick in another place. Right? And I don't know what's going to happen, right? But at the moment, those two systems are not necessarily always complementary to each other. Right? So we need to bear that in mind, to recognise that this is not silver bullet, as I say, in terms of institutional, legal. And that's just on an institutional level. When we talk more on the kind of soft areas of this, right, the soft skills, in terms of cultural issues, attitudes as well, that's why there is this a question as to how effectively all these policies are going to be able to resolve our challenge. Of course, there is potential. We see certain innovative solutions. We can say, for example, the loop is a very innovative solution to this, and you have this area where effectively two systems are coinciding at the same time, two systems are operating at the same time. But this is very particular. Right? This is a very particular example of what can be achieved. It shows that there is some flexibility. It shows that there is a legal flexibility, but whether or not that can be expanded and extended is very difficult to say. But then we can also, to say that again, in the same way that high-speed train and big bridge is one, it's this big new thing we should be excited about. But Hong Kong is not new that Hong Kong has had relationship. The GBA is just a line on a map, right? There's already been a lot of integration. There's already been a lot of cross-border exchange, a lot of cross-border interaction over time, and there will continue to be that. I don't say always anymore. I say there will continue to be. There will continue to be this. Demographically, we have to. Like it or not, we have to recognise the fact that the Hong Kong's relationship with the rest of mainland China has, demographically at least, slowed down our process of aging. That because of migration, because of cross-border marriage, because of maternity migration. So it has played a role in this before. But then, rather than looking for the solutions to these problems in Greater Bay, because they will only give some little, play a small role in this, there's a sense which, if we're seriously saying that moving to Huizhou is the way to solve our demographic problems, then this is kind of crazy, right? We have gone too far, right? We shouldn't be getting so imaginative about it. We should be looking more at, is this the business model that we want to run, right? Why is housing the way it is, and can it be solved within Hong Kong? Why is fertility so low? But not just fertility so low, but the gap between what people say they want to do and what they actually do. Why is that gap so big? Why is it that we have one of the highest childlessness rates in the world, but according to the surveys, nobody wants to be childless? Right? Very few people want to be childless in their early 20s, but they end up being childless in their late 30s and early 40s. Why is that the case? Why have we got such a big gap there? And solving this through Greater Bay is not going to be the way to. We have to try to understand why there is this situation. And similarly, with our job market, instead of trying desperately to try to find the graduates that we've got, ever more elaborate ways of finding them a job, you know what, maybe we have to look at our education system and our expectations. And I know that Professor Mock has written about this himself, about the quantity and quality of our education system, the skills that we are churning out, the graduates we're churning out. What do we actually want them to achieve? Rather than just doing business as usual and trying to scatter them to the winds to try to find productive careers. And so therefore you can think of this as one final example in terms of the care sector. We know that it's going to grow. It's obvious the care sector is going to grow, right? And we know that because of the demographic changes of identity, we are not going to be able to solve this by shipping everybody off to Huizhou, right? It's not going to work. And so why don't we address the care sector that we have here? And this is not any kind of Hong Kong nationalism or anything like that. This is just a practical response to the economic and social need that we have here. Right? That we make the care sector a good job. At the minute, no one wants to work in the care sector. Right? It's perceived to be a terrible job. And that's the same all over the world. But if we work on training and salary, make it decent, work with respect, dignity and career progression, then you can solve two problems in one go, right? You create a whole new sector, yeah, with jobs and good adequate progression and dignity, and you solve you solve three problems. Then you remove the reliance on migration, which is very fragile, and then thirdly, you solve this, or you work towards solving this aging crisis. So we have to look at the roots of it. And then I see the final thing is just to talk about Belton Road. This is the last thing I was going to say, is that, ironically, as a demographer, Belton Road makes a lot more sense because you are effectively outsourcing your demographic problems. Belton Road, to a certain degree, is a geopolitical. But Belton Road is also about cheap labour. It's about outsourcing labour-intensive industry. But that is a demographic. System. And so, actually, if I were to talk about the Belt and Road opportunities of demographic transformation, then actually I think it's a lot easier to sell on a macro level. Of course, it can generate problems down the line, but so that's why and even retirement migration. Maybe we will all go and retire in Uzbekistan in the future and have a happy, prosperous lifestyle. But anyway, that was, sorry, that didn't end, I don't know what, that's it, that's finished, I'm sorry. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Stuart. I particularly like your reference to Excel spreadsheets and how they don't solve any of our problems. just mentioning that in the back there's a lot of students sitting that have used Excel spreadsheets extensively for the term in one of my courses, but anyways, that's another.
Even doing it in art won't solve the problems either, right? It doesn't matter.
Now I think it's really a perfect beginning of the conference in a lot of ways, because it gives us a really nice macro perspective of some of the opportunities, some of the policy innovation that's already been going on, but also very importantly some of the challenges that Greater Bay Area development is facing at the moment. We do have time for some questions, so I would like to give the opportunity to you if you wanted to ask for any clarifications, if you have comments, if you have anything to contribute, please go for it. There's a question right here. Yeah.
Thank you, Stuart. I enjoyed your presentation, learned a lot. There are two things I would like a bit more information on. The first is you gave all those numbers of people taking advantage of portable assistance and moving out. Do we know if some of them are coming back or thinking of coming back? The other thing I'd like to know about is your idea of the care sector. What kind of skills, what kind of training would you envisage in that kind of sector, and would it generate a huge number of new programs in the institutions here? Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think that there certainly are cases of people moving over and moving back, but as a general rule, for example, if you do move over, there are implications related to like your housing, right? So your housing authority allocations as well. So it's kind of moving back and forth is not particularly very easy. It's not a very flexible system for moving back and forth. There's actually really not a lot of work that's been done on talking to people and actually getting why did you move there? How happy are you for moving here? How do you feel are the advantages? Do you regret it? This is really something that we've not really explored in a lot of depth. There's been certain little studies on this, but there's not really been a lot of coverage. In terms of the care sector, if we're looking around the world at the moment, we see that health care and social care are considered to be two completely different dimensions. And to a certain degree that makes some sense if you're thinking about kind of primary care. Right? And there's no doubt about that. But increasingly, you would see that a kind of a caseworker system would be something that you would imagine should be developed, as you would see elsewhere in Europe, whereby this interaction as a social worker would be able to help you to navigate what would be the best healthcare, primary care systems, but then also the best social care systems. Now that would involve here the massive extension of the social welfare department and the social work department. And this is not necessarily something which is going to happen. Our social work system in Hong Kong, I think, is under-resourced and is undervalued. The question is whether or not this will be a government-led responsibility or it will be an individual responsibility. You will have to take care of your own long-term care. Well, if I was going to, based upon experience in Hong Kong, is the government going to do it for you, or are you going to have to do it for yourself? Well, I think I know what the answer is going to be. Right? I mean, if we're thinking about the kind of, the transition that we've had, the mortality transition that we've had, we are moving towards a world where we will have longer-term chronic health needs. And we need to, and ideally, we want an age in place, right? We want to be at home for as long as possible. There's a practical component to that because it's too expensive to go into institutional care, and the government's not paying for that either, right? So we want to stay at home as long as possible for our own benefit. And so if you think about dementia, for example, this is the classic example of where you need healthcare, you need a doctor, but you also need day-to-day social care as well. That if we rely on the doctor, rely on the HA to provide dementia care, well, they can't do everything. They can't do the social care. So you'll have to take responsibility for that. So that's this whole new sector of, in terms of Alzheimer's and dementia care, that we need to have people who are trained up to do that. At the moment, as I say, we have this migrant domestic worker system of reliance. Taking care of somebody with Alzheimer's is very different to taking